Hi, this is Lori, and this is my video journal for Education 675. The prompt is, what are your biggest takeaways from your SLP interview and your functional analysis, and what will you apply? How will you apply what you've learned in the future in your work with students on the spectrum? So it's been an interesting few weeks. I've learned a lot. In interviewing with my SLP, I was really impressed that she really follows all the best practices. She's using formal, she's using informal assessments, she's using observations, she's looking at language samples. She pretty much just does it all. And I was surprised that we're doing a lot of the same things in the speech room and in my classroom. I asked her about how she does pragmatics and helps with things like starting a conversation and making conversational repairs, taking turns, all those things that many of my students struggle with. And she does something that I don't think I do, but it was really interesting to learn, and I'm going to now carry it into my classroom. She says, in getting them to use what, where, when, why, how, and having a back and forth conversation with other members of their group, she often introduces a carrier phrase for them. Like, when I'm at the movies, I like to do this. Or when I'm at home, this is what I do. So she kind of like helps them get it started, and then it can kind of go back and forth with the carrier phrase. So now I've built carrier phrases into my teaching repertoire, and I'm using them in a lot of my classroom discussions. I was pleased to hear a lot of the strategies that she uses. I also use, and we seem to be on the same page with many of our shared students. So it was really nice to have that glimpse into the speech room, because I never really get to see what she does with those kids because I'm teaching other kids while she's doing speech sessions. Sure would be nice if teachers could take field trips to watch other teachers. Anyway, so that's what I learned from my SLP. In doing my FBA, I also learned quite a bit. And I think one of the first things I learned was the value of student interviews and parent interviews and teacher interviews, and asking questions to get as much information as you can in order to define the behavior, and to define the behavior as specifically as you can based on those observations and interviews and rating scales, so that you really have an idea of the exact nature of the behavior that you're looking at. And then, of course, it was very interesting to put it in the chart and try to figure out, what was the function? Was it to obtain a tangible? Was it to avoid or escape? Was it a sensory-related need? And the little guy that I did my FBA report on actually had behaviors that kind of slipped into all three of those categories. But definitely his primary motivator was to gain attention from adults. But interestingly enough, he also wanted to avoid negative attention from his peers, because he's an anxious guy and carries a lot of that with him and reacts to any feelings of uncertainty in how he's behaving or what you think of him with really significant violence, and it's pretty quick to escalate. So his teacher and I were really struggling with, what do we do? How do we figure that out? Because, behavior requires a consequence. And if you did any kind of corrective feedback, he escalated further. And I think that's how he functions in his life at home. He kind of controls his environment because nobody wants to make him mad. So it was really interesting to look at all the different ABC data I gathered and where it fits, and then to develop a functionally equivalent replacement behavior. And once I had the behavior specifically defined, and I was able to define a replacement behavior that would serve the same function and start practicing and using it with this student and using those skills and the language that and how we delivered the expectations, it's been interesting because I wrote the plan, right? We kind of updated his BIP from my FBA, and in starting the plan, I started it about 4 days ago, and I'm taking data every other day, and it's really up and down. He had a day with 6 episodes and then a day with none. And it's really good to have data to talk about looking at why the behavior is happening and evaluating, is the replacement behavior really working for him? So too soon to tell because I just started, but I love that I have these tools now to not only look specifically at behavior, but also to communicate with with gen ed teachers, with the school psychologist, with the parents, with my administrator. I mean, I can talk about this with other professionals and parents now and kind of know what I'm doing, which is handy. I really think that what I learned as far as the function of behavior and how to gather data to determine that, and then how to plan look at it across what purposes it serves, and then plan a replacement behavior and an intervention will really serve me well with not just the one student I concentrated on, but several of my students. And it seems like the more I learn about behavior and looking at behavior and trying to look at it without judgment or emotion and just look for the function, it really makes me a more effective educator. And I love that about this program. So I guess that's it. That's what I learned about FBAs and what I learned from my SLP, and I'm just going to keep learning. Thanks. Bye.